Welcome, everyone. Sorry for the late start. We're going to go ahead and start the July membership meeting for the Reservoir Hill Association meeting. It is now 7:05 p.m. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, neighbors, and welcome everyone who has come to present from the Department of Transportation. The way that we order our meetings is we begin with our board reports and just share out what the committees have been up to and what officers have been up to for the month. Then we move into our discussion. This month, we're going to be focused solely on our streets. We have Matthew Hendrickson here to present on the Utah Place bike lanes. And we will also be able to ask other questions about our streets and our roadways. We'll end the meeting with some announcements about what's going on in the neighborhood and for the Reservoir Hill Association. Okay, so I will begin really quickly. For those of you who have attended meetings, you're aware of the West North Avenue Development Authority. There's actually a community leaders meeting going on right now. So Arlen Cullers and Rolando Maxwell are not going to be here tonight because they're there advocating for the community right now. During that meeting, we are electing the representative for all the communities that are east of Fulton. And so we'll let you know what the results of that election will look like. But that community representative, their role is going to be to communicate with the community about the changes that are going to be happening along North Avenue over the next couple of years. And as a reminder, this is something that has been funded by the state of Maryland. It's legislation that was passed by Senator Antonio Hayes. And in it, it includes two panel members or board members for that organization that will be community representative and will be responsive to the community. And so Rolando and Arlen are there advocating to make sure that that vision is enacted. Moving on to 2001 Park Avenue, I just want you to be aware that there will be a community engagement meeting. It was previously scheduled for July 19th, but that's going to be rescheduled because that's a voting day. And we will be in contact with you about when that is. But a couple of changes to that meeting have occurred, including the community has advocated for having 3 questions that we'll be asking all the developers that are responding to that RFP to answer all across the board. We also asked for funding for signage to make sure the entire community is aware of that meeting. And we also asked, again, for that meeting to be rescheduled for a more appropriate date for the community. I also want to make you aware, sorry, this is a lot of information. The Baltimore Banner is planning a community conference, and they are asking for people to support basically it's a visioning conference where community members will be able to think through how the city functions, explaining how it works, what community associations do, and then what the future of community organizing will look like. So it's really in its very early stages, but we'll definitely keep you posted as to what our involvement will be. And if you're interested in being involved in that and being a representative for RHA, please do reach out to me because we really do want more members to be involved and representative for the community. And speaking of which, there is another opportunity called the Digital Equity Leadership Lab. They are looking for community representatives to be nominated by community associations to really think through what digital equity looks like for Baltimore. I do believe there is a stipend included for this opportunity. So if you're interested in equitable internet access, equitable digital access, please reach out. You can email me. My contact is on this slide, or you can contact us at contact@Reservoir Hill Association if you're interested in being nominated for that opportunity. Another thing that I would love to share with you all is the Love Your Block grant is open again for the communities. And so what that is, it gives you money towards doing cleanup on your block or towards doing anything that would long-term improve the look, feel, and visibility of your block. And what we have decided as an organization is instead of proposing an area, that we would really like to do a call out to you to say, do you have a block? that you would like to clean up? Is your block ready for some love? Would you like to work with us to apply for that grant? Because we're now a 501c3, so we can help you apply. So if you live on a block that needs some love, maybe that means cleaning up trees, maybe it's a lighting project, we don't know. Please email us. Let us know how you would like to use that money. And then finally, register, please register for vote. He's downstairs, baby. Please register to vote. I don't know, sweetie, sorry. Miguel, I'm in the middle of a meeting, honey. Can you? It's life. I kind of lost my place here. Sorry, and I don't know how to get back to the other slide. So I think I was on the last piece, which is basically that the Love Your Block grant, and I forget, did anyone see what the last point was? Because I can't
register to vote.
Register to vote. I think that's self-explanatory. Make sure that you vote. We have the positions that are open include the position for senator, and also the positions of our delegates. And if you've been in any of these meetings, you know how important it is that we have responsive senators and we have responsive delegates. So please really look closely at people's platforms and really choose wisely. And of course, the governor is also up for election. So please, please, please do your due diligence and vote like your life depends on it, because it does. Is Derica on the call? Yes. Derica, do you have anything to share with the group? Going once?
No, I don't. Yep, I'm not. No, I'm just a little frustrated. I've been. Yes, it's imperative that we vote. And please be educated with your votes, and don't vote because you like somebody or they look like you or whatever. And due diligence and pick people who are going to bring some substance to our district, please. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Derica. And yes, can't say that any more strongly, that really, really pay attention. And just because you recognize someone's name doesn't mean you should check their box. Make sure you know what their platform is. Okay, and Darnita's not in. She is on a work obligation right now, but I do believe the video, I'm looking at Melda's box. I think the video has been uploaded to YouTube.
Oh, my apologies, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, the video from last month will be uploaded to YouTube. Have the minutes been uploaded?
I don't think so. I was still waiting for her to, let me know whether they were complete.
Okay, so we're still waiting on the minutes and the videos, but they should be up for the month before. So, we'll try to get those up as soon as possible. Chet.
Hi, everyone. So I'm the treasurer, in case you didn't know. Just to reiterate a few points, we are officially a nonprofit with the IRS. We have our bank accounts open. We currently have $275 in the bank account. The PayPal is now set up to accept donations. You can go, I will put a link, you can go to RHA donate if you have PayPal. I'll also put a link into the chat in a second. I'll be applying for the state tax exemption certificate for RHA as soon as I stop testing positive for COVID, because you have to mail things in. So I'm in beginning of week 2 of symptoms. So wear your mask. It's spreading like wildfire out there, in case you haven't heard. Wear your masks, wear your masks, wear your masks. Even if you're vaccinated, I'm vaccinated and boosted, didn't matter. So just a PSA for that. We've put together a financial policy document, which the board is in the process of reviewing. And that's about it, I think. We will be having a membership fee vote soon, I believe. If I forgot anything, let me know.
No, that's good. And yeah, just so you know, the holdup for the membership fee, we had to go through and make sure that we had the correct attendance records, because as you know, according to our bylaws, there's restrictions on who can vote and who can't, depending on how many meetings you've attended. So to be eligible to vote, you have to have attended 50% of the previous meeting. So that's what we were waiting on. It's taken a while. We're all volunteers, but we now have the attendance records. So now we're able to actually set up the vote. I know I've said that multiple times, but we're actually ready to do it now. So moving on, I'm going to read for Orlando because, like I said, he's in the trenches right now. But I know that him and Arlen are scheduling a second walkthrough with Lauren Shizik. I believe that's how you say her last name, for Upper Utah Madison. And what they're doing is they're really walking through so Lauren can really familiarize herself with that corridor, that historic corridor. He's really working with the other historic district on Mount Royal Terrace. They're having some organizing barriers. So they're really looking for more people to step up into leadership in the Mount Royal Historic District. So if you live in that district and you're interested in historic preservation and supporting that historic district, I know they need support, but Rolando is helping to make sure that the issues that both districts are facing will be things that he can speak to and advocate for, with the end goal of creating a Reservoir Hill wide historic district so that everyone that lives in Reservoir Hill can get the benefits of living in a historic district, which includes having those tax breaks when you are updating your homes and other things like that. He's also looking for folks to form an architecture review committee, which helps, what they do is they review requests to proceed on construction and development work. And they also will probably help to work on creating homeowner workshops. So workshops on understanding your home, how it functions, what are historic details, why it's valuable to keep them, to increase your home value, and also what homeowners can do to really help with the longevity of their home. So those are kind of topics that they would like to discuss in their committee. Lauren, I don't know if Lauren's on the call. She might not be here. I don't see her. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Janae.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to share an update. I'm in Southern Maryland right now, so I'm not sure about my coverage, so hopefully you can hear me okay. But nonetheless, we've been very busy with the events committee. So we've been finalizing the details of our Reservoir Hill Home and Garden Tour, and a shout out and a big thank you to all of the members and other that have participated in the tour. Really excited about it. So the tickets are going to go on sale via Eventbrite today. And so what will happen is that the tours will be dispatched throughout the next week, which is July 17th through 23rd. So each day we'll post new content to the tour website. And then on the 23rd at 11 a.m., what we'll do is we'll invite tour participants who would like to participate in a Q&A, and we're going to invite them to come and chat because we anticipate getting a lot of questions about, what happened, what was your thought process, a little bit of before and after, who did you go to for XYZ, and just an opportunity to share information. So the proceeds from the tour will be used to host other RHA events throughout the year, including some Green Committee events, as well as develop Reservoir Hill resources. And then as a part of the tour, we're going to be recognizing some of our unsung heroes in the neighborhood. So what we're going to ask and follow-up email is for you to give testimony to some of the people that we have identified recently that we feel have done an above and beyond job supporting the neighborhood. For example, the folks with DPW that do our waste management have done a phenomenal job. People like Miss Pee-wee, Mr. Lamar, and others. So please do look out for that. And then the proceeds will also go from the Home and Garden Tour to sponsor events like a glow-in-the-dark movie night that is planned for August the 5th in German Park. So stay tuned. Keep checking Eventbrite for details, but we're super excited and we really loved the opportunity to meet new neighbors, and we're hoping that we can showcase what some of the beautiful homes and gardens that we have in our neighborhood and generate some excitement around Reservoir Hill as well as Reservoir Hill Association. So thank you for this new opportunity, and we hope that you guys will purchase lots of tickets as well as share the information with friends and neighbors so they can also get a chance to see our fabulous neighborhood. So I don't know if I missed anything, but I'll just turn it back over to you.
I don't think you missed anything, but I just want to point out that Melda shared the teaser for the tour in the chat. So if you want to just click that and save that in your browser and watch it later, it gives you an idea of how that's going to look. And then I also want to say, save the date. It starts this weekend. So it's a wonderful thing. One, your donations towards this tour not only will support, like Shanae says, the Reservoir Hill Association, your community, and you all as members, but it will also be really fun just to attend it. I mean, I think it's every week, Shanae, or is it every day you get new content that you can see?
Every day we're going to release new content on the website, and then that content is actually going to be up until the 31st. Now the live meeting is going to be the 23rd, and clearly we can't extend that out. But nonetheless, you can see the homes, Melda and Ronnie's house, or Rolando's house is going to be on the tour. I mean, like a lot of people on the call just really opened up their homes, and we're going to release it day by day so we can kind of build up a little bit of excitement to a crescendo on the 23rd, and it'll be there if you want to, on demand view it. It'll be there until the 31st of July.
That's right. Yes, and like Daryl said in the chat, it's a very affordable. It's a $15 ticket, and that will get you all access to all the video footage that's being released daily. And on top of that, you're going to be able to be entered into a raffle. And there are I believe there are three different buckets of items that you can win that are really fun and exciting. So it's a win-win. You get to support your community, you get entertainment, you get entered into a raffle. So I don't know why anyone wouldn't sign up for a ticket. So definitely look out for that Eventbrite. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. Daryl.
Good evening, everyone. Marketing has basically melded with events in order to accomplish the task of the Home and Garden Tour. Before we moved exclusively into that, though, we did put together a monthly newsletter template, which we have used a couple of times. We have weekly reminder templates, but we haven't used them as of yet. Again, as soon as the Home and Garden Tour launches, we will be able to come up to speed with our previous agenda items. So that does include the calendar update, and we have not moved our social media accounts over to nonprofits, but as I've said a couple of times before, just as soon as the Home and Garden Tour begins, we will have done the work that we need to do in order to support it. We are presently gathering photography and video in order for us to create advertisement for the tour, as well as providing content on the tour website. Upon Melda's comment in a previous meeting, we went back and looked at all of the advertisement that we've done thus far, and we rebranded it because we want to ensure that individuals know that the Reservoir Hill Association is presenting this, so thank you, Melda, and so we will continue to create reels and stories and all the things that we're going to flood the zone in the next few days leading up to the 17th. So that's where marketing is.
Thank you, Daryl. Arlen again is in the WNADA meeting. So very quickly, the 825 Druid Park Lake Drive has gone to the architectural review panel. So that's the one that is now calling itself the Linden, that new project that some of you attended that meeting. At architectural review, they asked them to rework their architectural drawings. They said, and I felt very proud to live in Reservoir Hill, but basically their feedback was the design just wasn't on the standard of the buildings that are on Druid Park Lake Drive. So they need to go back to the drawing board. So that is what happened with 825. The EV charger, we would like your feedback on the EV charger locations, but so we need to send out that. I know that in our last meeting, we said that we did want EV chargers, we just didn't like the suggested locations, and that we wanted to suggest new locations. So we have to open that window back up. There's been a delay in Madison Park North. As you've seen, there hasn't been a groundbreaking. I don't have much information on why that's a delay, but it is a delay. As I said, 2001 Avenue, that community forum, which by the way, please attend if you can, because that's the time when you're going to hear from the 3 developers that submitted RFPs for that mansion up on Park Avenue. So that's the only moment the community gets to ask questions and really dig into that proposal. So please try to attend, but that's been rescheduled, and we'll definitely email you and let you know when that's been rescheduled for. The Druid Park Lake Drive lane proposals, which we're going to hear more about later today. I think that, I don't know what that actually means. I'm going to be honest. I don't know what that bullet point means. So, but I can move on to the second one, 2201 Brookfield. A lot of things have happened basically after that meeting. I don't know how many people on the call are part of planning and development, but I recognize a lot of faces were in that meeting. A new developer has come forward using the exact same architectural design that was proposed before for 2201. They have, it's very close to going into receivership. And so the city does not want the building to go into receivership. So they have approached the developer to instead come in and develop that building. Right now, the developer has asked RHA to write a letter of support. However, as you know, we already wrote a letter against the proposed design for many reasons, which, I don't want to take up too much time going into today. So right now, our position is that we don't write additional positions unless the conditions of those, the bullet points have changed. We also are, I know that this is going to be a topic of discussion for PDC, but it's on the table that we no longer write positions for potential buyers because of what happened last time, which was that basically our positions were based off of what a potential buyer said. But then when it went before the BMZA, they said, I don't know who this person is. So we are being careful about that. So that is going to be discussed in the PDC. But for now, there are conversations continuing with the city and with this proposed developer and RHA. And I'm sure that that will be the topic of discussion at the next PDC meeting. So if you're part of that committee, please come to the next PDC meeting. So that was a lot of information. Thank you all for getting us through that. Now we're going to move on to our discussion section, and we're going to turn it over to the Department of Transportation and Matthew Hendrickson. Matthew, do you have you're going to be presenting first on the Utah bike lanes. Is that right? I'm going to stop the share.
Yes, that's correct. Hi.
And then after that presentation, that's the point that we can start asking questions and having a discussion on that, right?
Yep,
Okay.
that sounds good. And I also have I have a couple colleagues here with me. One, I'll be discussing Utah Place and the bike facilities that we're planning for that area. I'm also joined here with area planner William Etheridge, who will be discussing the Druid Park Lake Drive study. And of course, we have Eric James, who is your assigned community liaison. So if you have other questions that go beyond kind of our respective projects and you have some other issues, he's your guy. He's a great guy. And if you don't know him, you should. But I will start to share my screen. I know that we have allotted about 30 minutes overall, and so we'll try to be timely. So I think for Will and I, we'll keep our, attempt to keep our presentations to, 10 minutes or less, and then just more times for questions and comments. Awesome. All right. And let me just pull this presentation up. We'll start from the beginning. And if you guys are able to see, if you can just give me 1 second so that this pops out. Really trying to get this screen to come down. Let's just do that. Okay, how we looking? Nods, thumbs up. All right. Well, thank you again for having us, and really excited to hear all the things that are happening in Reservoir Hill, and congratulations on that 501c3 status. That's also really exciting. But I just wanted to walk you through kind of this project, which is part of our separated bike lane network plan. It spans over 2 miles, connecting Druid Park Lake Drive to Druid Hill Ave and Center Street, which has a separated facility, a separated bike lane that connects to the downtown network. So this is kind of the agenda, but first kind of outlining our goals, which is, as I mentioned, part of the city's vision to make sure that people can bike across the city, no matter where they are, no matter who they are, making it safe and comfortable for people of all ages and abilities. And just kind of knowing the streets of Baltimore, that can be a challenge. And so we have to provide, again, kind of what we call a separated bike lane. So making sure that there's some kind of distinction between people that are driving and people that are biking. That often includes a lot of intersection treatments where we're making it safer for people to walk and cross the street. And we're also providing kind of traffic calming as we kind of narrow some of those roadways. But we'll talk about some of those benefits as we get into the actual project. I also just wanted to note that we got funding from the state to fund the design of this project. And we've kind of been ramping up and saving up money for construction. And we'll kind of get into the overall project timeline here in a second. But the extents of our project are here. I'm just kind of talked about that as far as connecting Druid Park Lake Drive along Utah Place. That northern section and that section 3 to the left also includes Madison Avenue. As we cross North Avenue, there's a complementary project that will help connect us back as you head southbound along Madison back onto Utah Place. But the idea is that we have a separated bike lane throughout that entire corridor. Okay, and so how I've kind of broken it down is through those sections 1, 2, and 3. Section 1 is that pink section to the south. Section 2, the blue in the middle. And as we get further towards the lake, is in the green section 3. So what I don't have are final plans for you, just because some of those intersection treatments are still being worked out, but we're really close to final design. And I do have the concepts to share with you for each of those sections. So that's what I'm presenting here tonight. So what we have here is, that southern connection in section 1, connecting Druid Hill Avenue. What exists today are essentially 2 travel lanes, 1 in each direction, and then 2 parking lanes. For that eastern section, kind of coming out in and out of downtown, we're going to use that eastern parking lane and turn that into a separated bike lane. And so you'll see that, and I can kind of zoom in just a little bit. What you see here is the kind of buffer and flex post, those dots. And then you kind of have two-way lane for people biking. And this is what we call a floating bus island. And so we kind of have an additional curb that comes out for people to wait and catch the bus. And so it actually helps improve bus operations and safety, so they're not pulling in and out of lanes. And it's just kind of a benefit for overall transit operations. Second is one where we don't have those final designs, where we're still working out some of those intersection treatments. This is certainly the most unique, let's just say, section between Dolphin and MLK. We have kind of a lot of state buildings. We have a lot of transit areas. We have a lot of transit waiting zones. We have parking. So what we're kind of doing here is pushing that parking out. We have a median that kind of goes through this area. So I will just say we're still working through this section, but it's the same kind of concept as far as, kind of maintaining parking, but also making sure that we have kind of transit loading areas, as well as some of those floating bus islands for not just a separation between people riding bikes and for people driving, where you have that kind of clear delineation, but also just helping having safe places to wait for the bus. This is from Dolphin now within that section 2 up to North Avenue. The roadway changes as you're heading further north to a median. The current conditions here are kind of 2 travel lanes, but during the day, well, that is a travel lane. And then at the evening, you kind of have it's a parking restricted during the day. And then you have ability to park there at night along that median travel lane. You still have, and you have parking on both sides on the curbs. What we're proposing here and what we're designed is, again, a separated bike lane that runs on either side of the median. So essentially using that parking restricted bike lane and then expanding that median out and then utilizing, basically kind of expanding that median. So what you'll see at a lot of, within this section is 1, that separated lane, and then 2, kind of these intersection treatments. There still is parking towards the curb, but that parking at night will now be a permanent bicycle facility. I will also note that we're working with the parking authority and also have been coordinating with local organizations through this corridor, as well as the council person, to try to look at some opportunities to maximize parking along the side streets and any other ways where we can kind of mitigate some of those impacts. Oh, sorry, going backwards. And then as we are going further north, we split from a 2-way street into 2 one-ways. And so we wanted to make sure that we had access all the way up to Druid Park Lake Drive, going both north and south. And so we have, we're going to be able to take that pair of Utah Place and Madison and provide a separated bike lane on both of those streets. The street is wide enough where, again, the configuration of the roadway does not need to change too much. We'll be maintaining parking throughout the entire corridor. We're, still able to maintain that separated bike lane, 1 heading northbound on Utah Place, 1 heading southbound on Madison Avenue, using that space next to the curb. However, the one kind of big change that we did look at is switching the parking from pull-in straight parking to back-in angle parking. So the angle parking will remain. We're just going to flip the orientation, just because it's a much more safer configuration and can minimize crashes, in some cases up to 50%. And the reason for that is just the visibility of people backing out of those spaces. So if you've ever parked at that pull-in angle, and you're parked next to several other cars, sometimes cars that are larger than yours, say like a van, just knowing if people are speeding or coming up that street, you can't really see that very well. So you're kind of pulling out blindly. This will help that by being able to just back in on the front end and then you have the visibility and the sight line to see when you're pulling out. So that's why we made that change. It's definitely a safety issue for us. We think it'll be better. And then the other kind of benefits overall of the project for us are, one, you have this separated bike facility, so safe and comfortable for anyone. At the intersections, we're definitely looking at improving crosswalks and crossings. You certainly have the impact as far as improving transit operations, and then just generally as far as the narrowing of some of those roadways and how we're kind of redesign the road. It will calm traffic and, again, provide a safer environment for everyone on the roadway. And that is it. I will drop my information in the chat. But before we move on, I'm happy to take some questions, and then we can get to Will to talk through Park Lake Drive.
So I see a couple of questions are in the chat. Sorry, I'm restarting my video. From Dale, is Utah Place below North going to be one lane on both sides 24 hours after this is done?
Hey, Dale, yeah, that is the concept that we're proposing, and that's the proposal and that's the design that we're taking forward.
Okay, so that is between basically that blue part that we're seeing right here on the screen.
That's correct.
That's going to be one lane now, and currently it's two.
That's correct.
Kind of like 1.5 almost.
Exactly.
On places.
It's kind of a hybrid lane. And so, this, was kind of, this project was identified within this separated bike lane network plan in 2017. And so it's just taken us many years to kind of get to this point through design. We've had kind of public meetings on this in the past. I think for us, the biggest thing that we've heard is just kind of, hey, we use this parking in the evening. This is for residents. We get that. We also recognize, that we're going to continue to work with the parking authority and kind of maximizing and making it more efficient to park elsewhere, and just continuing to work with you all to kind of help mitigate some of those impacts.
Okay. So sorry, I just want to make sure, are you saying that there's not going to be parking on Utah there?
There will be
Or
parking
left?
on Utah on the curb side where parking exists now.
Okay,
And then
okay,
that hybrid lane will then be changed. You will no longer be able to park there in the evening. And that will be,
Excellent.
that hybrid lane will be turned into the bicycle facility.
thank you,
Bike
thank
lane.
you.
Yep. Mhm.
And Annie asks, will there be any resurfacing of the roads for these bike lanes? Because Utah Place is fairly rough in a lot of spots south of North Avenue.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think we don't have that scoped out in this project. But I think if there are some issues we can kind of mitigate, again, if there's some patching or some of those things, then we would do those repairs as necessary. But as far as the entire resurfacing, that's kind of a different area. We try to coordinate as best as possible, but we're so far behind on our overall streets and maintenance. We're just behind. And so I think a lot of that, as far as this last session, as far as getting us additional revenue for those types of projects are coming down the pike. They're just not here yet. So, but I think that's a really good point. Thank you for that note.
Okay, so just at this moment, that's not within the budget, but it is something that you'll consider for future in the future. Okay.
Certainly.
Okay, Dale, has there been any feasibility studies on current traffic amounts on Utah Place throughout, and how many accidents take place?
Yeah, I don't have the specific crash numbers in front of me, Dale. We can certainly follow up with that. And yeah, we kind of looked at the feasibility and capacity of the corridor. And certainly that this is why this project was identified. We just weren't seeing the volumes for 2 lanes here. And then of course, when you have those 2 lanes and you have less congestion, let's say, or just an open roadway that's wide, then you have more speeding, which tends to lead to more crashes. So we can, pull that up. I think that's all publicly accessible, and you can access that online. And I can drop another. I can follow up with that. Let's just say.
Okay,
Thank you. That's a
that would
great
be
question.
wonderful because that's something that we would love to put on our website. The whatever information that you have on that. Janae, I see your hand, but there's one more question in the chat and then I'll call on you. Linnell asks, will there be changes to parking angle inadvertently make access to the parking harder due to the various one-way access streets in the area? Linnell, if I could ask, if you could just explain that a little bit more, what you mean.
Sure. I didn't know if because of some of the ways you have to access the different streets, one way, and others are two, if it's going to make it harder for the residents to actually get to the parking. You know, if you're going to have to go around and some obtuse way, and depending on time of day, that's not something you might want to have to worry about.
Yeah, so I think that, so I guess you're referring to the kind of that section 3 in the north, where we have the 2 one-way streets. So again, the roadway is not changing. The roadways will stay the same. The directions will all stay the same. It's just the direction of the angle parking and how you'll pull in. So the only thing as far as when you're talking about cross streets of that nature is that we'll have more of a buffer on the corners where you typically would have that buffer. And that buffer exists today. It's just not striped out, or it's just not present, or people are parking too close to those corners. So we're going to try to formalize that so people know that they shouldn't be parking there, and then where to park. So the parking spots will be essentially, the locations will be the same. It's just how they're pulling in. And kind of how I described as far as that angle, it really is a safer way to park, just because you're backing in at the beginning rather than kind of blindly backing out as you're pulling out. So I don't think that should be a concern as far as accessing the parking itself. So it might just take you a little longer when you're parking, but certainly when you're pulling out, a lot safer and a lot easier.
Okay, Janae.
Thank you so much. I'm a big fan of backing in just in general, but that was not my question. My question kind of piggybacks off of both Linnell as well as Dale. And so once all of these changes are made, my assumption is that you all are going to be collecting data to see the efficacy of it. If so, is there the possibility of making adjustments if there are some challenges with all of the proposed changes that you mentioned before?
Yeah, I think we definitely want to collect that data as well as kind of be responsive. And I think that that's an excellent point. A lot of those types of changes occur kind of at intersections where we see the most conflict between people walking, biking, and people driving. And it's also where we see the most crashes. So yeah, we're definitely open to that. We want to be responsive and adjust to improve this investment in infrastructure. So yeah, thank you. That's a great point.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that information as well as the presentation.
It's my pleasure. And so I'll definitely follow up with some of that access to sources for crash data. And I think there was one other thing that you guys had mentioned. Maybe.
Yeah, the data for crashes. Dale, sorry, you wrote it out. Feasibility studies on current traffic amounts on Utah Place and how many accidents take place. So what is the traffic like along Utah? And then how many accidents take place? So all along the entire corridor.
Yep.
I'm curious about that. And as a person who lives on Utah, I will say I think it's going to be a bit of a cultural shift for us. And I know that I am concerned and hopeful that this has an impact on the speed of traffic going up Utah. But I do have concerns because there has been violence towards people that are going too slow on Utah already. And I can imagine us having to back in. That doesn't mean that's a reason why we shouldn't change it, but it is something that is a concern, just how we change the culture of how people view Utah Place as a residential street. And I'm curious, design wise, what are the kind of things that you're going to do to reinforce other than back in parking? And of course, there's going to be the additional bike lane that's going to be there.
Yep.
what are the things that we can look for that kind of will help drivers signal to drivers that, hey, this is now a new stretch of street and that you should be traveling down it differently?
Yeah, and I think that's what we're trying to deliver through this design and the design elements that we've incorporated into that. One, what we talked about as far as separating that bike lane and having that clear distinction for people on the roadway. So everyone kind of knows where to be and there's no confusion, and that eliminates a lot of conflict and people feel more comfortable with that. We've all been there, and I'm a bike, and I bike, of course, as the city's bike planner. You know, and kind of within that road and people passing or not knowing how to pass or just feeling uncomfortable as a driver being too close to someone bicycling. So it takes a lot of that away. And I think just provides a much more comfortable experience for everyone. The other aspects of kind of some of that traffic calming is as you kind of push some of that out, whether it's with bike infrastructure or pushing the parking out, it kind of feels more narrow rather than that kind of open space where you feel comfortable speeding. That also includes some of the bus operations where the curb is actually coming out for the waiting areas and loading for the bus operations. And again, that provides a lot of traffic calming benefits.
So this is not exactly a question for you, Matt, but more for the folks that have been in our neighborhood longer than I have. I know that there were talks of changing the parking angle. I think there were even talks of moving it to parallel parking at some point decades ago. And I know there was a very vocal movement to not change the front parking the way that it's currently to keep it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, because I don't really fully understand the argument against, but I just wanted to give space to anybody in the community that's on the call that knows the argument against that to kind of vocalize that. So we just have that on the record. And so we're familiar with why some of our neighbors might feel that way. Is anyone familiar with why people are kind of against back-in parking along Utah?
Hey, Keandra, this is Dale. I can do my best. Not sure that I'm most knowledgeable about this, but I know at one point, it's been a little while back, but there was concern about angled parking from a security perspective, as in if there was parallel parking, you can, it's open on both sides of your car versus angled parking, you're in between cars. I don't, that's been several years ago, but I know that there was a discussion about that at one point.
Thank you so much, Dale. I just didn't want to leave the call without voicing, because I know that is a opinion that has, that has been really popular. So I just wanted to make sure. So I want to now kind of move a little bit towards some folks are noting things that could be helpful to include, whether or not that's in this budget for this particular project. I think people want to share some things that they do want to see change. So Chet also discussed raised side crosswalks as potentially being helpful to help slow traffic. I know there is a for and against position for speed bumps. I think some folks are against them, but I know some people really look at that as a potential way, even like the mini speed bumps along Utah, to help really slow down those, because some people really gun it up Utah. And Chet also said, and Janae said she supports that, and Janae is my neighbor, so she also lives on Utah, if that counts or anything. And then Chet clarified, especially at Dupatel, where there is no stop sign, and it is halfway up a very long unbroken block. And yeah, that is a concerning intersection where there isn't a stop sign, and facing Utah, by the way, is what we mean. So when you're going up Utah, there is the alleyway that a lot of people use, and because there's no stopping point, oftentimes when someone's speeding, you can't see them until too late. And so there is a potential for an accident there. So the only thing before we move on, because I know there's a second part of this discussion that I wanted to mention, is when we were doing that walk around with Lauren Shizik from from CHAP, we asked a question about how our curbs, which might seem silly, but our curbs are made out of granite. And a lot of our crosswalks actually have brick underneath them, but they've been paved over. And so we asked her, what is a policy for the city to make sure that they're preserving those kind of historic elements in our neighborhood? And so I was just curious, what as you're repaint, it's just a repainting, I believe.
Yeah.
This in our neighborhood, there's not going to be digging or disrupting of the streets. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay. So I guess that's moot, but just, I guess I can ask the question anyway. What are we doing to ensure that those historic elements are respected?
So just do whatever Lauren says is my short answer. She's been a great resource. And so we've kind of conferred with her as we kind of took this design forward, as well as working with the fire department and making sure that we have, emergency vehicle response and that, they're signing on. They've kind of given us the green light with these plans and making sure that we're not impacting those types of emergency operations or having any kind of historical impacts. So, there will be, some kind of curb work with the bus stops coming out. And again, we have to make sure that everything's ADA accessible, but we wouldn't be kind of tearing anything out or having any kind of historical impacts on some of those granite curbs or elsewhere. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, and that we make sure that we follow through kind of those historical, regulations and impacts, and checking with Lauren is always the way to go. So.
And when I first heard about this project, I was at the Madison Park meeting, and they brought up a lot of concerns about just the historic design. And now that we know, we had some concerns, but now we know it's mainly a painting project. In the future, will there be more protections for bikers? Because as people, a lot of people on this call are bikers. They might bike not daily like you do for work, but maybe for recreation. And there have been studies, right, that actual physical barriers are the best thing to protect bikers, and removing them as far as possible from the element of drivers is the best possible thing that you can do to make a safe bike pathway. So we're kind of doing something in between. That's better, obviously better than nothing. Do you think that in the future, let's say the next 5 to 10 years, there might be an amping up of those types of bike lanes throughout the city?
So yeah, and that's certainly how we would like, as a city, for our kind of bike infrastructure to evolve over time, and kind of making it from kind of these quick build products into something more permanent. But it's really one step at a time. And so there's I can't guarantee within a certain time frame, but certainly, for us to be able to realize kind of an all ages abilities network, we're first going to have to, we're going to have to start somewhere. And then over time, we can evolve that into safer infrastructure, which costs more money, but has those kind of really great benefits. And so I certainly, I just wanted to say within this project, it's not just the striping. We do have some vertical elements as far as like flex posts. There are curb kind of stops, and we're looking at the right type of product. Whether it's, something that you would see kind of black with kind of, reflectives, or kind of concrete. Do we want flex posts on those as well? But so again, having additional types of separation, whether it's concrete, curb stops, flex posts, and then also kind of bumping kind of the parking out. So then you have not only the separation within the lane, and then you have the parking lane, and then you kind of having the driving lane, which is kind of like how we have on Maryland Avenue and in other places across the city. That also provides that additional buffer.
So I just want to clarify, for our strip in the green section, so that northernmost strip, is there going to be, are you thinking about putting up flex posts there?
Yep.
Okay.
There will be flex posts. So when we say separated, there will be a vertical element.
Oh, there is. Okay. So I was told the opposite before. So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any comments about that? Because I know that was very controversial in the other meeting that I was in, simply because oftentimes those get knocked down and they're kind of like bent over and sad looking after after a couple of bumps. And it aesthetically is unpleasing, let's say it that way. But I remember it wasn't you in that meeting, but the representative that was there from DOT basically said the budget, that was the limitations of the current budget for this project.
But, that may have been a different project that complements this along Madison Avenue.
Yes, it is.
And so what we have in this project is that in that section 3, we've had to split, right? From 2 ways from section 2, right? I keep saying section 2 because it's up on the screen. So I hope you guys don't mind. It's not impersonal. We're just looking at the picture. Blue versus green. No,
Yes.
But we have the 2 one-way roads, right? And then so when we're coming southbound back down Madison, which is now 1 way, and how do we get back to that, the safe, comfortable place on Utah Place that has this brand new bike facility, right? And so what we've done is we've added an additional project, and we've called that kind of the Madison Avenue project, or Madison Avenue extension in this case, to get us across North Avenue, along Madison Avenue, and then get us safely up back to Utah Place. And so what we're doing there is some restriping, some traffic calming, a couple additional speed humps, and then kind of looking at striping that parking and kind of formalizing that parking with some of those same kinds of interventions. So that's really the goal, is, kind of through that stretch, just adding more opportunities for you to, one, get through that corridor and calm it as far as speed, as well as then kind of some wayfinding and accessing the separated lane, which, even though on Madison Avenue in this section, there wouldn't be any separation, but it would get you back to where you need to be, which, as far as if you wanted it and were more comfortable on a separated lane, it would direct you right to Utah Place there. Or as you kind of go a little bit further, and I'm just blanking on the name, but it's right as you kind of, Madison Avenue hits the schoolyard, and then you can take a left there. You can take a left, or you can access Utah Place anytime throughout that corridor.
Do you have any visualizations of what that would look like in the neighborhood?
As far as designs,
Yeah,
I think that one, we had we had public meetings on that, and we do have some of those visuals, so that can be shared.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if that's on the Bike Baltimore webpage, but I will double check, and if it's not, then we should get it up there.
Yeah, because I do believe Councilman Torrance thought it was going to be just stripes. So I think that's where there has been a little bit of a disconnect. So it'd be wonderful if we could circle back about that design element and how that's going to affect the look and feel of Utah Place, especially as, that being now, or it's going to begin to be again one of the main entryways and entry points into Druid Park. So yes, okay. So now switching gears, and I know we're really at time now. I guess if I could just get a sense of if people would like to discuss the Druid Park Lake Drive project at all. I see a thumbs up. Yes, from Daryl.
Yes.
Now, okay. All right, so we'll move forward. If you're able to, we can go ahead and see that presentation, Mr. Etheridge.
Well, I think you're in luck, because I don't actually have a presentation prepared. It's going to be pretty quick. It's just an update on where we are and what the future holds for the project. So as you may know, the study officially ended back in April. That was the end of our online public polling. The funding that was provided was to take us to 15% design. So without additional funding, we can't move forward to 100% design. We know that there's additional analysis and environmental review, potentially a NEPA study, which is the National Environmental Policy Act, before we can get to construction. So if you did read the final report for the study, it's still online. You know that we held an online poll to gauge residents' preference for which of the future concepts they preferred. We had almost 1,000 responses to that poll. I think it was like 920 something people indicated a preference. 81% of respondents indicated a preference for reimagining Druid Park Lake Drive as a residential street with one lane going in each direction, along with a variety of other improvements like better sidewalks, improvements at intersections, additional mid-block crossings, multi-use path on the park side, and a separated two-way cycle track that would run the length of the park. So since then, we've been seeking out any and all sources of funding to build up the $32 million that our consultant estimated it would cost to fully fund the project. And so that includes most recently a Resilience 2050 application to the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, submitting the project for the 2024 capital improvements budget. And of course, we're going to be ramping up our grant applications to the federal government for anything from DOT, obviously because this project has a very high equity impact on the community. So unfortunately, the study wasn't completed in time to be eligible for this year's CIP. And we made that clear during most of our public meetings, but it will be a part of our 2024 CIP package, and it will be a proposed 6-year plan. So ideally, if all of the funding is acquired starting in 2024, we should be ready to break ground, hopefully around 2030. But that's our best case scenario right now.
So the earliest that it would be breaking ground is 2030, you said? Okay. And can you explain what CIP is?
That's the capital improvements plan. So we develop our budget every fall. Well, we start around the spring and the summer, and then submit it to the BOE for a 6-year budget process. So everything that we've been working on up till now was submitted just recently, and we have a 6-year budget based on the 2023 CIP proposal. So next year, hopefully this project will get in on that CIP process.
Okay, and so if that budget is approved, then you're really looking at 7 years out as to the breaking ground point.
Correct, you're right, yep, 7 years.
So if the budget isn't approved next year, it continues to push that back.
It continues to push that one, yeah.
Okay.
We have no reason to believe it won't get in, but obviously it's a request, and the city can always say no if they don't want it. So.
What do you feel like the likelihood of a project of that magnitude being approved by the city? Is that common? How does that kind of process work?
Well, I feel fairly confident. We just had a new capital planning chief hired in February. Her name's Alicia Lorber. She supports this project. Everyone that I've talked to at senior DOT leadership supports this project. So I feel fairly confident we can get in on next year's CIP process.
Okay, so Annie, I did see that you had a question before we moved on, and I don't want to move on without making sure that we were able to address the question about resurfacing. Was that about Utah Place? Okay, I'm not sure. She might not be able to unmute, but she had asked a second question. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it was about the condition of Druid Park Lake Drive today is much worse than when the reservoir began. So do I understand we have to wait 8 years for that to be resurfaced? I refuse to drive on that road, which means I have to go by the squeegee boys on North Avenue all the time instead.
Well, what I'm aware of is that once DPW is finished doing what they're doing, and that's a stormwater drainage issue along Druid Park Lake Drive, that they will then restore the road to what the condition was before they started working on it. But the big jump element will stay in place until the Druid Park Lake Drive, whatever the future of Druid Park Lake Drive becomes, gets implemented.
Okay, so the contractors are responsible for putting it back to so-so condition?
I can jump in here, Will. I can say the road will be resurfaced. So you're right. It's a mess. It's absolutely a mess. I drove through it today. And it's under construction. It's what a construction site looks like. It's just under construction, and that's the reality of it. I know that you guys have been living through that, and it's very frustrating. I totally understand that. And we're trying to keep it maintained as much as possible. Each phase, there's a different phase of closing the road, opening it up, ripping it up, closing it back and forth. So the road has taken a lot of damage. As we've switched the orientation of the roadway, it's going to get fixed. It's going to get resurfaced and repaved. And then what Will was kind of kind of adding on to that, as far as the shared use path, it's been separated with those water-filled barriers, also have taken a beating. Also, you're going through this high-speed area, they've been crashed into, they've been beat up, and so they've kind of outlived their lifespan. And so we're going to maintain that shared use path. It really has been a way to connect communities, and it's actually gets a lot of use for people of all modes, and whether they're people running or biking, or folks from the senior homes are just going to grab breakfast. They're using it. And so however you roll around, however you want, however you walk or move around, it's been done there. So we want to make sure it's safe and separated from that traffic. And so we're going to upgrade those barriers, move those, add in some concrete barriers so that they're more permanent and there's less maintenance, but that will occur after that road is resurfaced and that construction is completed. So we just appreciate your patience in kind of going through this massive project. We're going to make it better. And I would also like to add, we're looking at some right-of-way art to kind of go on those barriers on the kind of more permanent look, similar to kind of when they rolled it out. And so hopefully it adds like kind of more comfort and beautification to that corridor. And Annie, we will get you back out there and you're driving on it again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Cynthia Lewis, I see your comment about addressing the vacants on Utah Place. I would love to talk with you about this at length, and I know that's an issue that the Planning and Development Committee is working really hard on. I just know that the representatives from DOT really can't speak to that issue. So if you wouldn't mind, I would really appreciate if I can have that conversation with you offline, so I can hear a little bit more about what you've been facing with trying to deal with that issue with vacants.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Janae asks, the water-filled barriers were questionable with their aesthetics from the jump. Pardon the pun. So I think that's just a comment on what it looks like, the design of Druid Park itself. And Annie's question is, who is responsible for the street sweeping of the big jump lane? Is that DOT or DPW?
Yeah, the sweeping is DPW's responsibility, but we definitely need to coordinate with them. I mean, it's just a unique situation, right? And so kind of the construction debris really piles up. We would have to move all of the barriers, and we've done that in different phases of construction. And then just kind of when the barriers get moved, DOT is, trying to maintain those barriers as much as possible. And, some of the things have been damaged. Some of the connecting pins are gone. And so we've reordered these things to try to hold them in place. I think we're all there. We're holding on as best as we can to get us through this construction phase. And so, yeah, I understand it's an eyesore and appreciate the puns. And yeah, we're working with our other agency partners, and I know it's not enough, and we're just going to continue to do our best.
Okay, so just so that, because this all often comes up when we're having conversations with the city, is that even though a project seems like it would really be under the purview of one agency, there's so many agencies involved. And so the project manager on the lake project itself is DPW. The project manager on the Druid Park Lake Drive is the Department of Transportation. And then additionally, the visioning plan of what will happen after the tanks get, once that project is over, where they're creating those cement tanks and burying them, that project is then going to be Parks and Recreation. Is that correct?
Yeah, as far as the Druid Hill Park. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So
you got it.
I just wanted to make sure everyone, that's all. Because it is confusing, right? Because it's like people say the Druid Park project, but it's actually 3 separate projects, one of which is fully funded, which is the tank, the water tank project. and 2 of which are still seeking funding. So that would be the Druid Park Lake Drive corridor and the Complete Streets project. And then that doesn't even include the big jump, right? That's a different project. So I just wanted to make that really clear for everybody, because it's sometimes hard to navigate understanding who the project managers are, how they're interlocking. Okay.
And you
Yeah.
mentioned kind of more permanent infrastructure, right? And so I think that's a really great example of, like, you know, kind of trying to pilot with kind of temporary materials that honestly have been out there a really long time and shouldn't have been out there that long. And then, you know, again, making the roadway improvements with that resurfacing, upgrading that to like more permanent, like concrete. And then what is the actual, you know, vision of that streetscape and how that changes into kind of like more permanent sidewalks and trees. And that's exactly kind of the evolution that we'd like to do. It's just, you know, managing the funds and all the other needs of the city. But I think that's, you know, Druid Hill Park is one of the greatest amenities and places in this city. And, you know, there are a lot of great projects that are going to impact that. And again, attempting to restore the park to the people in the neighborhoods. So it's an exciting thing to be a part of. And yeah, we're happy to contribute.
And so I'm just going to read Annie's comment, which is, it's rough and dangerous to ride a bike on with any speed, with so much construction near Utah and the construction entrance of the site. So I'm just sharing back the experience of what it's like living with the construction, and really the importance of moving that project ahead and getting us to a place where we can enjoy why we moved here, which is, you know, the beauty of Druid Park and the drive for sure. And Chet asks, is there an estimate on when the Druid Park Lake Drive construction would be finished? Will the city be spending major money twice on the same section? So I think the question is, so we have the idea of your timeline, right, as DOT, but if we're taking a step back and looking at the entire section, right, it being completed, do you have a sense of, are we looking at decades? What are we looking at to seeing that area being really fully accessible and functional?
Yeah, I mean, I think Will answered that in his question as far as kind of our funding for that. You know, and as far as the actual construction schedule for DPW, that's kind of a moving target and has been, as you guys know. And then, yeah, again, the other projects, I don't have an update there as far as that coordination, but knowing that they're ongoing.
Okay. And, oh, Chet, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of more of a nuanced question. My question is more along the lines of, once the existing project is completed, you're talking about repaving the roads and putting up concrete barriers. Is that sort of a small funding project where you're spending small money on that and then you'll be spending a lot more money with the major project? Or is the city going to be spending twice on the same section of road between, say, Madison and Park Avenue? Are you spending huge amounts of money to make it nice and then tearing it up and redoing it again?
No, I mean, I think what we're talking about is just repaving versus kind of a larger streetscape.
Okay.
So then that would just be like re-envisioning the roadway.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And then, of course, I have to repeat the historic question, which is along Druid Park Lake Drive, there are beautifully paved brick walkways and things that kind of have been, I don't want to say destroyed, but they've been neglected or sometimes partially paved over. Will there be an eye to making sure that what is left is kept, and then potentially actually restoring some of those elements?
Yeah, that should be. I don't see that changing.
Any other questions? I'm going to do a big pause. I know that there was a lot of vocalized concern about Druid Park becoming one way on each end, which was the chosen design by everyone who voted on that element. Of course, there are some members, some citizens in some parts of the city who have said that a lot of the response from your survey really represented people that did not actually live along the corridor, didn't use the corridor daily. So is there any chance that the one lane design will be rethought and it could include more lanes in the future? Or are you going to be using the results of that survey really to move the design forward into the future?
Well, I'll try to answer that in that on one hand, I think you realize that DOT did not indicate a preference when it comes to the concepts that were submitted by the consultant. And part of the reason for that was we wanted to gauge response from the community first, as opposed to saying what we wanted. Let's see what the residents prefer. And we've seen that. I think it was very clear what you all wanted as far as the future of Druid Park Lake Drive is concerned. Throughout the process, all the public meetings, I think we saw some of the same things that you did, that there was a vocal but small community of folks who did not live adjacent to Druid Park Lake Drive, who wanted to preserve the ability to commute back and forth the way they have for decades. And we made note of that. We tried to make sure that we heard all of the voices and we would let the democratic process play out. And I think it worked out the way that we kind of estimated that it would. But yeah, in my opinion, the only thing that would change moving forward with a one lane concept would be some sort of either environmental or physical element or a variable that we haven't discovered yet, that would be discovered as a part of the further analysis and construction design process. So if we go out there and we find out, there's something in the ground that won't let us do what we want to do, that might change things. But, best case scenario, we're going to move forward with the one lane concept. Now, that being said, politics has a way of infecting and changing things sometimes. So, if someone gets elected and they decide they don't want this option, then that's out of my control. But, if things move the way they are right now, I would say that the one lane option is clearly what the community wants, and we want what the community wants.
So because, as an organization, we really tried to help. I try to learn. I will speak for myself. I try to understand how the city functions. So when you say someone can be elected and has the power to kind of shift a project like this, who has the power within our city government to kind of dictate those shifts? Who are the elected officials that have that kind of leverage?
I'm not really familiar with the whole budgeting process. I mean, maybe, I don't know if Eric or maybe someone higher up could kind of speak to that, but, throughout the city government, if a coalition of city council people get together and they decide, we're going to pass a budget that has this amount of money for DOT, and it doesn't allow us to do what we want to do, we'll have to prioritize where we spend that money. And there are other projects competing for a small pool of dollars. So like the Bridge to Nowhere is a big project, and we need a lot of funding to kind of fix that as well. So there are other things that we're looking at. This is a priority for us, but we'll have to try to make do with the amount of money that we can get our hands on.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. It's just helpful to understand the larger framework of how decisions are being made and how they are decided. I think my time is up a little bit here. My daughter just ran into the room. So if there are no other questions, I think we can begin closing the meeting. I just want to wait a beat to make sure that no one else has any questions about Druid Park Lake Drive, about streets in general, right? Like any questions about issues within the neighborhood and streets in general, or the particular projects that were addressed.
I do have one quick question, if that's okay, about streets in general. On Utah Place, we used to be able to park to the end of the curb because of the lack of parking. And then they put up these signs where you can't park past a certain area. We get ticketed all the time. And as a homeowner with young kids who gets home late at night and can't park 3 blocks away because there's nowhere to park, and then coming out to a like $30 ticket or $40 ticket, it's I don't know what we can do as a community to tell the city to either help us with more parking, or to no longer, to give us some grace at, like, if it's after 10 p.m. and it's dark, to not ticket until the morning. So that I've spent hundreds of dollars getting ticketed, but I refuse to, park 4 blocks away at 11 at night when I've got my kids with me.
I know DOT, we don't ticket past 10 p.m. So if any tickets are being given out, they're given out by BPD at that time of night. What's the location? We can have somebody maybe look at it to see if anything could be done about the parking signs.
That would be great. It's on Utah Place in the 2400 block. So it's I'm like 24. I'm like the second house in. So it's the signs that say "Don't park beyond this line." So it's on both sides. And I have been ticketed. I don't know. I didn't mean to direct this to you all, but just whoever in the city. I know there was a lady out there one night, and she was very nice. And I told her, please don't ticket me because I really have nowhere to go and I don't know what to do. But then, of course, later, when I had to get in late, then I would get ticketed again. So I'm not sure he's doing it, but whatever can be done to look into it. There's just way too many tenants, people who live on that block and not enough parking space.
Part of the problem could be is that we have to allow a certain amount of space for cars trying to go through stop signs to be able to see up and down the block. That's what we call daylighting. So somebody would have to see if that's exactly what's going on right there. I can't promise you that will change, but we can look into it.
Okay, yeah, I do think they said something about the buses when they turn. That was part of the issue, but the city has allowed too many, there's too many people on that block to not have parking, and we still have the parallel. So yeah, whatever can be done about that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the block that Cynthia is describing doesn't have that back end angled parking. It's all parallel on both sides. So there's even less parking than there is on the 2300 block, on the 2400. So thank you, Cynthia, for that. I have an additional kind of like, how do things work question. So there's the Baltimore City Parking Authority, and then there is the Department of Transportation. How do you all work together for parking issues within the city? Is the parking authority really for more public areas? Can you explain that? Like, what's the difference between what the Department of Transportation and the parking authority?
The parking authority handles exactly what you just said, parking. So anything parking related, even though it's on the street, the parking is still handled by parking authority. So, okay. But DOT owns the streets, but the parking authority, they dictate the parking in the city.
Okay. So one struggle, and this seems really outside of your purview, and this is why I asked this question. Mm-hmm. One of the struggles that we're having in Reservoir Hill is a lot of our single family homes are converted into multifamily homes, which in some cases is really important to meet the need of renters in the neighborhood. Right. But then what happens is a lot of the parking requirements are overlooked. So there is requirements within the city with how many units, 2 parking spots, but oftentimes those requirements are overridden by the zoning authority. So what can the Department of Transportation do to help communities advocate for ensuring that there is enough parking for the residents for the built environment that we have?
The DOT will look at the parking situation, and then they will go to the parking authority and make suggestions, and then the parking authority will give us an okay whether or not that we can change it or not. So prime example, like for angle parking, we could suggest it to them, and they will give us the final okay. And there's other things involved as far as parking is concerned, especially when it comes to angle parking, like how wide the street is, if it's a bus route, et cetera.
And I would also just add, if there's some zoning issues, there is someone from the Department of Planning who is dedicated to this area. And so they can keep an eye on those things, and someone who should be a resource for you as far as making sure that those things are not being changed, or that you have a voice within that process if something is changed. And it should be coming to you as kind of the neighborhood organization. So if I'm just blanking on who that may be. I don't know.
Linda. I think that's Linda.
Okay.
It's not Chad Hayes. He
Oh
is-
yeah, Chad. Yeah, Chad.
Okay.
Yeah, Chad would be
Are you
great.
talking about from the city side and not
From
DOT
planning.
side?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Chad would be your guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are in contact with him, but it feels like even if the neighbors are advocating for these changes, it's very little that we can do in the face of developers, honestly. So I was just trying to see if there is another route, because we also have issues with sanitation within the neighborhood for those reasons. We have issues with parking, and we're not really understanding how we can really articulate those really clearly, the impact that it's having on individual citizens. Okay, so again, I'll say last call for things that you want to share with DOT. They're on the line, they're listening. This is a moment that, you know, we have them. So if you have anything that, you know, stoplight issues, stop sign issues, you know, speed bumps, speed cameras, anything that you want to share with DOT before we close out. Going once, going twice. All right, so what we've met you, sorry, honey, don't do that. Hold on. We've met you, we can be in contact. We have your contact information. Thank you for putting that in the chat. So we'll be in communication. If there is anything else that comes up, I know that I put in several 311 complaints for the light turning into the neighborhood on Druid Park Lake Drive is crazy. Like, it's always backed up late in the evening. So I have to say that out loud. I timed it. It turns at, I think it's 12 seconds is the amount of time it gives you to turn into the neighborhood. So I don't know if that's something that can be looked into, but I'm gonna say it out loud just because I can. But for, you know, we can be in communication, and hopefully this won't be the last conversation that we have. So thank you, Mr. Hendrickson. Thank you, Mr. James. And you had a third, Mr. Etheridge. Thank you all for coming on the call and speaking with us tonight. And if there's nothing else, I'm gonna skip the announcements for tonight because it's been a long meeting. We had Chet said Sergeant Dennis is on the call. Sergeant Dennis, did you have something to share with the group? I'm sorry, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. No, I'm not sergeant. I was going to give you the numbers for your community. That's all. And to see if anyone, if he was going to participate in the National Night Out on August the 2nd. Lou?
I do believe that we had plans to host something for National Night Out. I know that that's something that Jerika often spearheads. So I don't want to speak for her, but I do know that it was the intention that we did do something this year in collaboration with other organizations in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
If she could just let me know, because the command staff would just like to know, you know, trying to make a plan on the National Night Out so we can hit everybody's, you know, community.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Jerika, can I volunteer you for that? For that communication?
No.
No?
But you can volunteer for me to get in contact with him.
Yes.
A major project.
Yeah.
And no, not this year.
Okay. So Jerika will reach out to you about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. Thank you for staying on the line and being so active throughout the call. And Mr. Gillespie, was there anything else that you wanted to share with the group?
Just the the 28-day comparison, and that's
Sure. Yes.
From this time this year compared to this time last year, you had no homicides to report, no shootings to report, no rapes to report, no robberies to report, just 3 aggravated assaults, just 1 burglary, and 5 larcenies.
Thank you, officer.
Oh, you're welcome.
So that was really good into the very end. So does anyone have any questions about that data? Anything to report to the officer that might be helpful for him to know about the neighborhood? Do you mind putting your contact information in the chat, just because I know some people prefer to be able to contact you one-on-one rather than on the call?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, because I know I don't want to delay this. Did you say from a year ago there were no murder?
So it's a 28-day comparison from this time last year to this time this year.
Oh, got it. Okay, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not a year comparison. It's a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Let's say, okay.
So July is good in Reservoir Hill, it sounds like. It's a time to be here. Okay. All right, so I'll pause for a second for you to put your contact in the chat. If there's nothing else, please do read our newsletter, because I know that Melda and Daryl worked really hard putting that together and making sure all the announcements were in the newsletter, so you can check that out. Please do look out for the Home and Garden Tour tickets that will be available via Eventbrite. We really appreciate anything that you can do. And I know that Janae will also be reaching out to see if anyone would like to make some calls to event members, either this weekend or another one, just to get that events committee up and more participation. Not up, it's definitely running, but more participation in the events committee. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Officer Gillespie's phone number is in the chat for you to copy. And until next month, unless you are joining our committee meetings, we will see you then. Have a blessed and wonderful evening and have a good night. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Good night.